Hey beautiful people, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Honestly, I really appreciate it. Today we are going to look over episode 3. Sorry it's taken so long. Honestly, I've gone back and forth on these episodes. I've made notes, I've lost notes, all sorts has happened. But anyway, let's get into it. So, I'm not going to lie. I have seen, as I've been producing and making these, a lot of YouTube videos kind of being like, no. And I didn't watch any of them. I kind of refused so that I could 100% give you my full, wholehearted opinion. And I still haven't. But I kind of am starting to see the cracks. Okay. Now, in the original series, there was a bunch of episodes that were dedicated to Umashu, which is this episode's name, and yeah, where they are. King Boomy and Jet. Now, this episode in particular kind of focuses on Umashu, Jet, and a bunch of other kind of filler episodes that were thrown into the series. They weren't my favorite episodes. I'm not gonna lie, I usually kind of skip those. Oh, and another episode which was actually supposed to be set in the Northern Air Temple, but for some reason they've just chopped it up and meshed it into this. And that's with Sai's character and Teo's character that you will see later on that we'll go through. But yeah, I can kind of see the cracks. There is a lot of mishmashing of episodes that up until now kind of made sense. But in this, I'm starting to feel the choppiness and the lack of fluidity, I think. I'm hoping it doesn't stay like this. I'm hoping that, these two episodes are just like meh, but we'll see. So the episode does start in the Fire Nation. It starts kind of with, like, I guess, an underground rebellion amongst the people. They actually want to sneak into the palace and, I'm assuming, getting rid of the Fire Lord. They talking about how he isn't great for the country or their kingdom, the tyranny, all that stuff, all that good stuff. And there is an informant there who is this young lady who works in the palace and will help them sneak in there. If you didn't know, this was obviously a setup, and the young girl turns out to be the Fire Lord's daughter, which is Azula. It is interesting that this series has implemented characters that you only see later on in other seasons straight away from the jump. Azula in the original show doesn't show up till the second season. I like the idea of her showing up a bit earlier on, but I don't know. I feel like Azula really, really, really looks young. I mean, which could work, but I guess just because in comparison to the original show, even though I knew Azula was younger than Zuko, it never came across. She always felt, more dangerous, more driven, ambitious, and, all these things that you equate with someone who is a bit more mature. But in this, visually, she literally looks like she's about 12. But who knows? That might make her kind of fall into madness even more interesting. I'm not too sure. Yeah, Azula Azula fully sets up these poor people and is under the assumption that they're just all crackers because, they're talking about being saved by the Avatar and that, bringing the Avatar back and all that crap. To which she just thinks it's all fairy tales, and then Fire Lord Ozai actually shows her the letter and keeps her up to date with what's been going on with Zhao. And that's pretty much how the opening sequence ends. It then goes to the title card, which is now a hue of green, as it says Umashu. I think this is almost like an homage to the old series and the chapter sequences of that, because each season had a different element chapter, but I guess in this they're just kind of having 2 episodes or maybe 3 episodes dedicated in a weird way to the elements. I'm not too sure, but it looks cool. So the next sequence starts with Katara trying to learn waterbending from the scroll that Gran left her. I don't know. I'm still on the fence with Katara just because I don't remember Katara being this kind of like warpedly timid. It genuinely feels like she's like terrified all the time. Now, in this sequence, as she is trying to learn and as Aang is trying to give her some advice about delving deep into your inner feelings in order to express the motion of the water whip or whatever move she's trying to make. I don't know. I mean, this Katara is definitely a very sad and broken version. It seems like, now don't get me wrong, in the original show we did see what happened to Sokka and Katara's mum, but it isn't what drives Katara. Katara wants to be a waterbender. She wants to help people, and she wants to not only be a healer but be a powerful, waterbender that can help cities, that can help Aang, that, is very crucial to the success of the Avatar. This Katara is like some quiet, timid, mousy, sweet girl that has been through a lot of trauma and is dealing with it. Now, Katara had spunk. Like, she was very kind, she was very sweet, but she would argue with Sokka and Aang all the time. She would be very set in her ways. She was very feminist as well and didn't like any kind of misogynistic or derogatory terms that they would say about her being a woman and having to cook and clean or whatever. So it was really, it's really weird that our female protagonist in the show hasn't left much of a mark whatsoever. Sokka in the first few episodes was awesome. Aang was his bubbly kind of childish self like he is in the show. But Katara is just really the odd one out. And even in this scene, in the original show, Katara was waterbending and doing all kinds of tricks. And she actually starts helping Aang, but Aang succeeds her very quickly and she gets annoyed. And that's why she quits the water whip and was like, whatever, because he gets it straight away. In this, it's weird that he's not even remotely practicing with her. I get that in this show, he makes out that it's really easy for him. It's not so much the learning the ability, but the controlling it, which is, again, I did like that idea, but I do think it's a bit weird that he wants to go to the Northern Water Tribe and he's not even trying to learn with Katara. That's a weird change that I think doesn't make sense. Again, and the other being Katara is so traumatized that she can't really waterbend. Yeah, I don't know. This whole sequence it felt weird. Like, because it'd be different if every time she waterbends, she gets this weird flashback. But she can waterbend sometimes, but when it's hard, she gets the weird flashback. So, yeah. So they decide to head to the Northern Water Tribe, and on the way there, they see someone flying around. Now, I literally had to rewind, stop, fast forward, whatever. I couldn't for the life of me see anyone flying. I could see mountains, and that's it. And I managed, I think, to get a glimpse when Aang is pointing and saying, look, there's someone flying. There is literally like maybe half a second of the glider that you see, this little white glider, and that's it. When Sokka is saying that he's heading towards the mountain and Aang says, no, it's Omashu, Honestly, I have paused it over and over and over again, looked all over it, and I, for the life of me, cannot see what they're talking about. I don't know whether this was a technical error, but girl, in the show, now, this is a completely different episode from the Marshu episodes. Like I said, seeing Teo flying, now Aang sees him flying around, is it the Northern Air Temple? Which he thought was abandoned, and that's when he's like, oh my god, there's airbenders. So that's why this was weird, that that Teo's in a Marshu, and that's where he sees him. Because there's no reason for him to have a glider, really, in a Marshu. Because, you know, there's the slide things with the, whatever they're called in them. My brain's gone. There's different ways of traveling around Omashu for people who, you know, can't airbend or whatever. But for some reason, they put Teo and his father in Omashu. The whole reason he glides in, well, he is a paraplegic. He is disabled. But the whole reason he glides is because he's in the Northern Air Temple. And, like, there's all the wind flow and all that other stuff. And it's just easier to get around. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't like the fact that they mishmashed these episodes and had the jet in there. But yeah, so the reason they go to Omashu in this is because they see what they think is an airbender. Again, if any of you guys saw it, please let me know in the comments, because I was going nuts. I think I went over it a few times to figure out if it was actually there, and then gave up. So let me know if you saw it. Send me a screenshot if you can. But honestly, I think they made a boo-boo. It then cuts to Zhao, Zuko, and Iroh on the ship trying to figure out where the Avatar's next point, or where he's going to go next. They know that he's left Kyoshi Island, so there's only like a few places that he's going to go, and they know that he's probably going to go to the Northern Water Tribe. Zhao in this says that he's gonna contact some of his men on the ground to see where he is, to which Zuko has some pushback, but kind of realizes that he's in a precarious situation where Zhao's probably gonna do what he wants to do regardless. And that's what he does do. There is a particular soldier on the boat that it keeps going back to, and yeah, he tries to tell Zuko that Zhao failed his training 3 times, and Zuko doesn't want to hear any gossip. Even though Zuko doesn't like the guy, he is very much aware of his position and where the soldier's position is, and to still have that respect for your superior officer, which, I mean, is great to see that he isn't just like some snotty teenager, but really does appreciate order in that sense. And that's pretty much that. It then cuts to Aang, Katara, and Sokka walking up to the entry point of Omashu. Aang talks of the beauty of Omashu, of their delivery system, of the culture, the people there, and the food, and just showing his excitement to go back to a place that he truly did enjoy. So as they're walking up, they see the soldiers by the gate basically just abusing some guy? I don't know. They use their earthbending to literally yeet this guy off of the bridge, and his cart too, to which this humble stranger tells them that, yeah, they don't like basically foreigners in Omashu. They don't like strangers, they don't like people that aren't from there. To which Aang is like, what makes you say that? If it wasn't glaringly obvious that they were from completely different tribes. Katara makes friends with this stranger and kind of uses her cutesiness to get him to help her and get them into Omashu. Again, I don't know, like, I really want to like Katara. I really do, but even in this bit, she just seems very, I don't know, it feels to me like she's reading her lines. It doesn't feel like it's natural, or, you know, that she's being charming or whatever. Even with Aang a little bit, it does feel like he's reading his lines. Sokka, Zuko, the older kids tend to be better, but for some reason Katara, who's technically one of the older kids, I don't know. Like, this interaction with her and who we find out is Jet, Yeah. I mean, I thought this episode, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of these episodes from the original. But in this, I don't know, it does feel a little bit too choppy and a little bit too jarring. So it cuts to them being in some greeny hued rags that he put them in. Again, I'm really wondering where they got changed, but anyway. And he apologizes and he says it's either that or turnip sacks, which becomes important later on in the episode. Again, I kind of wish it wasn't that in a way, but you'll see what I mean. So Jet hits on Katara and tells her that, you know, she'd probably look good in anything, including the turnip sack, which Katara just is kind of like shy girling and just kind of ignoring. In the original series, it was very obvious that Katara liked Jet back. That's one thing in this show. It isn't obvious. Like, none of the relationships are very obvious at all. Her and Jet, Aang liking Katara. If you guys didn't know, Aang pretty much is in love with Katara from the moment he meets her. So it's really weird that they haven't touched on it. I don't know whether their intention is to change that. I have no idea. There is a huge fan base that wished that Zuko and Katara got together, which I'm not gonna lie, would have been really cute. But, you know, fire and water, yeah. But it's a bit weird that it is the third episode and we haven't really seen that part of Aang. Even if, I mean, it might look weird because obviously I think the kid's like 12, but, you know, I mean, a young schoolboy crush, that's very common. And that's how it was kind of put forward in the show. But like I said, it was very obvious that he was in love with Katara and he would get quite jelly. So yeah, it's interesting that even though this is a live action and a way more darker show, that we're not really seeing any of that part, any of the romance part in a weird way. I mean, maybe they don't want any of that in it, but it does seem a little strange. It is also weird in this scene that it just keeps cutting between Sokka and Katara and Jet, and then it's only as the cart gets accepted into Omashu that we see that Aang is also in this sequence. Like, honestly, I thought he was, like, hiding or something underneath the turnip sacks or some shit because of all of his arrows and how obvious it is that he's the Avatar. Literally, he's just chilling in the backpack. I don't know. I just thought that was really weird. Like, I don't know who directed this episode. I don't know if, I mean, I haven't really paid attention to see if they've got different directors. But this one with the camera shots, it's just, I don't know, it just seems really weird. Also, the soldiers that are the earthbenders, I don't know, you do see them do some earthbending moves in order to open the gates. And I just, unlike the earthbender in the first episode where it seemed more fluid and it seemed like it was happening, this doesn't feel like it's happening. I don't know, it doesn't feel right. It feels a bit too stiff. And that's the one thing, is that even though they are different elements, they are based on different martial arts, it's the stiffness that gets me. It just, I don't know, it just doesn't look right. I know I'm probably nitpicking and you guys are like, come on, really? We're talking about some fucking moves. But I mean, that's the main thing I was looking forward to, is the martial arts and how they make the powers look. Pretty much all I'm asking for. So we see Omashu in all of its glory, and we do see the slides with the carts that go up and down them. Again, see, this is what I mean about it making no sense that Teo would use a glider, especially in a city where they hate outsiders or anything that would attract outsiders. You are telling me that in this kingdom, no one was like, yo, why is there a kid just flying around? Like, I don't know. It feels like they've just tried to mesh a bunch of storylines together. But for me, it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And I'm still like, okay, like, again, if you've got this transportation system, why would he need to glide? I don't know. The one thing I do like about Omashu, or I'm guessing the Earth Kingdoms in general, is they did include Southern Asian as well. And I do like that this show is referencing the multitudes of Asia, the culture, and all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, we really see it in Omashu because a lot of the time we are seeing Pan-Asian characters, or like Inuit or what have you. But it is cool to see that, you know, they integrated a lot more of Asia than they did even in the original show. Now the kids see who they think is an airbender gliding through the city, and yeah, they run after him, and they bump into the cabbage guy. Now, these guys pretty much traumatized this guy in the show. He's the random gag relief that is also... He's not in every episode by any means, but he's in it enough that it is like the reoccurring gag of the show, is that something will happen to his car and all his cabbages will get destroyed or thrown or whatever, and he'll say, "My cabbages!" And they did do that in this. The cabbage guy is there, and yeah, as they're running through the city, they bump into him, and he says, "My cabbages." But this does happen quite a few times in this one particular episode. Now, I don't know whether that's because that's it, we're never going to see him again, but of all the things to keep in the show, that I don't get it. It's so random. It's really jarring. And if you didn't get it, like if you had never watched the original show, you're new to this, you're just watching this new Netflix show, you're going to be like, what the fuck? Because even I'm like, what the fuck? And I've seen the show. So Aang catches up to Teo and he realizes that he's not an airbender, that he's actually just a kid that likes to glide, and, you know, he's a paraplegic. He doesn't have any powers or whatsoever. But the way Aang says it to him, I know, like, it was like, you're not an airbender. Like, how fucking dare you? How dare you use a glider, bro? You ain't no airbender. That's how I felt. I was like, I don't know. In this, the characterization of Aang is weird. I liked it to start off with. I'm starting to see that it is a bit all over the place. And to be fair, I guess that makes sense because he is young or whatever, and it does show it a bit more. But I never remember Aang. It was, when he says, "Oh, you're not an airbender," it was almost like out of sadness, you know, that he didn't meet another airbender. Like, he was so joyous and so happy to think that he wasn't the last one and that there's someone else like him, that when he met Teo, it was sad that he wasn't like him. In this, it's more like he's pissed. He's like, bruh, why are you fucking with our shit? That's what it feels like. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like Aang, being like the character he is, would have been like that. I do feel like he would have been more sad. So it was weird the way the actor said it, I guess. I don't know. Or his characterization of Aang. There's then a huge explosion. And Katara yells out to Aang that they can't see anything because of all the smoke. There was a hint that the explosion isn't what it seems. Now, I noticed it probably the third time I watched it. But when the initial explosion happens, it does light green. Now, I'm not saying there is no green firebenders, but that for me was a bit weird. And if that wasn't a hint that there's something weird going on, then I don't know what is. The reason why I say I'm not sure that there is going to be any, because there could be, really. In the show, Azula's firebending is blue. Now, the showrunner said that they actually only did that so that you could differentiate the two, especially when Zuko and Azula are fighting. But it also kind of helped because blue burns hotter, so it kind of emphasized her rage and that kind of thing. So I am intrigued to see if they're going to keep Azula's fire blue, because up until now we haven't seen her firebend. But from what I can remember, she was the only firebender in the show that had a different flame. But yeah, so it would be possible. But again, if you were just watching the show, you wouldn't have known that. So Aang sweeps the smoke away from the explosion, to which Teo starts to commentate and say, "Oh, you're an airbender." Now, I don't understand how Teo wouldn't know that he was an airbender. Like, I'm not gonna lie, if some random kid who looks like an air nomad comes up to me and says, "You're not an airbender," like in a pissed off way, and I'm like, yeah, duh, I'm not an airbender, I wouldn't then be like surprised when he's an airbender. But for some reason, Teo is. And then he's like, and Katara water bends a little bit, and he's like, "And you're a water bender." It's like, yay. I don't know who wrote this episode or wrote the dialogue. Oh my god. It's like having to point out the obvious. That could have been silent, in fact, that whole little sequence. And then afterwards he could have been like, "Oh my god, you're benders." Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that was just weird. So Sai comes, which is Teo's father, grabs him and the kids and tells them, "Come with me. We live just there. It's safe." He questions his son and tells him, like, "Why were you out there?" And he was like, "Well, I was flying. I didn't realize there was going to be another bombing or another explosion." What? Like, I'm not... This is what I mean about mishmashing this episode. Now, I don't remember an episode of any bombings. Even the one with Kit, it wasn't a bombing. It was more like they were trying to set up and destroy this village that was run by the Fire Nation. And yeah, that, and they're like freedom fighters. And that was the whole Kit story. With, like I said, the Sai and Teo story, it's still roughly the same way. His father is an inventor. His father does work for the Fire Nation, which they left in this as well, and they find out. And unlike in this, his big inventions are given to the Fire Nation, like including weapons and transportation and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. And Omashu itself, if I can remember, I'm pretty sure we see Zuko and Iroh there a few times. I think they even settled there at one point. But it wasn't really, in my mind, seen as this scary city that has a lot of issues, that is being destroyed from the inside out and all this crap. I don't know. It just feels really weird to have a place that is considered a stronghold where the Fire Nation hasn't been able to like permeate or, get to in any way. Now all of a sudden they have all these like underground Fire Nation people blowing up the place. And it's weird. It is very weird. It's also weird how that's even possible with the security they have getting into the city. It does seem like it's a bit weird that we're not seeing soldiers constantly around the city. If that is the case, yeah. I don't know. I don't like what they've done to Omashu. I don't like that they've mishmashed all these episodes together. When it came to Jet, we saw his whole character arc in like that episode. In this, it feels like he is almost an afterthought, only to kind of like end this nonsense. It feels like very much that they wrote this story about the bombings and all this other stuff, and they were like, you know what? Let's get Jet to be the reason why it's happening, kind of thing. I don't know. Now, Teo goes on and on about how, because he's an airbender, that he can basically do the impossible and completely obliterate the Fire Nation. Sorry to tell you, Teo, but literally the opening sequence of this fucking series showed that airbenders are pretty useless compared to firebenders, considering they can literally utilize the air that they're making to breathe the fire, to make it bigger. Hello? I mean, is this guy like literally blowing out candles and is like, oh, totally, makes total sense. Like, one airbender is just gonna obliterate every fucking Fire Nation. No. What he should have said is he should have looked at Katara and be like, you're a waterbender. I know, water 100% gets rid of fire. Girl, step up. Or even if he just knew he was the Avatar because he was the last airbender, he'd be like, well, you're the Avatar. Can't you wield all the elements and get rid of these fucks? It just seems so random that he'd be like, well, you're an airbender. That's amazing. You can get rid of all of them. You can drop bombs. You could do... What? Like, maybe if you have the bombs, he can yeet them for you. Yeah, sure. But against a whole army of firebenders, every airbender that was in existence was there the day of Sozin's comet. So, I don't know, am I wrong? Like, again, let me know. Am I wrong? Like, is Teo right in saying that he's an airbender so he could just, fully just murk all of the firebenders? Or am I right in saying that, did y'all not see what happened to the airbenders? Like, I went on about how interesting it was that they showed us that by utilizing their air, they almost made like a fire tornado around some of the airbenders. But I don't know why this bit of dialogue, maybe Teo's dialogue in general, was I literally paused this and was like, is he stupid? Am I stupid? Wait, what? We literally watched that not be the case. A. B. He's the last airbender, like the last one. The last one. If that was the case, wouldn't you be like, oh, let's just get the airbenders? No. They got literally annihilated. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe because of the comet, it was harder to get rid of them. I'm not gonna lie. The Fire Nation was like 2,000,000%. But regardless, for me, it just seems polar opposites. If anything, air would fuel the fire, not completely just wipe it out. I don't know. Again, let me go. As you can see, I went crackers over this. But let me know what you think. If this part confused you as well, or if it is literally just me. Katara squashes this whole thing that Teo's got over fangirling over Aang, and is basically like, we have our own part to play in the war. We gotta get going, girl. This kid's crazy. And yeah, Aang agrees, but clearly you can see that there's more to it, that he does feel like he needs to help. Sokka is fangirling over the inventions inside the house, because if you didn't know, he is an inventor and, makes loads of little knickknacks and transportation and all sorts, because he did also make Teo's glider. But this is also the little hints we're seeing that Sokka isn't just a warrior, he is also a tinkerer, as they like to say in this. That is also great, because this is what we want to see from Sokka. We want to see how he grows into this warrior, because he does become a great leader in the way that he thinks of battle, in what he utilizes, what weaponry he utilizes, how he utilizes them, and that's all kind of part of this whole tinkerer mentality that he has. So Aang sees all the remnants of the destruction and the pain and the horror, and decides that no, he is the Avatar, that he needs to be able to try and help everyone. He then goes back to Sai's house and tells him and Teo that he wants to help and that he is the Avatar, and to let him in on what's been going on with these random attacks and these bombings. It then cuts to a scene with Azula, Ty Lee, and May. Now, in the show, this terrible threesome do a lot to stop Team Avatar from doing much. So, again, we haven't seen Azula's powers in this, but you can just assume that she has fire powers. The other two, again, I'm hoping they still are characterized the way they are in the original show. But the other two don't actually have fire powers. Now, Ty Lee, who is the girl in pink in the middle, is actually like a circus gymnast. I don't know what else they call it, but she can also do that Kill Bill thing where she can hit your pressure points and basically paralyze you. So she is very useful even as a non-bender, and she can literally flip, dip, everything in between to get her mark, let's say. May also doesn't have any powers, but she is great with daggers, and she has like these daggers that she throws at people and what have you. The interesting thing is May in the show is Zuko's girlfriend / ex-girlfriend or whatever. I don't know if they're going to do that in this show, because like I said, they look a lot younger than they did in the original show. Point in fact, Ty Lee wears a very revealing outfit. In the original show, she's basically wearing like a boob. Imagine like Jasmine's outfit from Aladdin, but it's pink. And that's basically what she wears to kick people's butts. May pretty much is wearing what she wears in this. She is almost like the emo goth chick in the show. She's very monotoned, likes the idea of pain and that kind of thing. Only really shows her true emotions around Zuko. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see if they're still gonna have a relationship in this, because even when she mentions Zuko, it's purely out of envy that he gets to travel the world and not out of like lust or, upset that he's left or whatever. And considering he left 3 years ago, it would have if they are 14, it would have meant that May was 11 and he was like 14. So I don't know if they're going to continue that story. Like I said, in the show, if you ever do watch it, you'll see what I mean. Like, the girls don't look like they're 14. Like, maybe 16, definitely around 17, that bracket. That's why it is interesting that in this show, they have kind of kept it close to the mark with the characters. But yeah, I don't know. Even the setup of where they're standing is very confusing, because Azula is shooting at a target, but when you see the wide shot, I don't know what target she's aiming at. She's literally on the sidelines shooting, and everyone else is like directly in front of the targets. So this is what I mean about the camera angles not making sense. Ty Lee also is weird. I don't know if she's gonna have any of those skills. I really hope that they did get an actor that has some gymnastics skills and that can flip and stuff, but I don't know if they have. Because even in the show, when Azula is talking to Ty Lee, even if they're not doing anything, she's doing some random stretches and like backflips and shit. And we didn't see any of that. We didn't get any kind of real characterization of hers. We do see May fiddling around with the dagger while they're talking about the Avatar and what Zuko's up to and all that stuff. Because it's strange, because yes, we do see the hints of jealousy from Azula in this scene, as in how her father could be so almost elated that Zuko accidentally found the Avatar, and that she's been doing all the brunt work while he's been dossing around traveling the world. So, yeah, this scene was weird. I don't know why they set it like this. I think it would have been better if it was just the three, and say if she's still doing target practice, she's on her own doing it, or that they're all target practicing, i.e. May throwing the daggers, her doing whatever the fuck she's doing with the arrows, and yeah, Ty Lee doing something on like a boxing bag or whatever, but like their version, and then yeah, her doing the pressure point flip things. But no, it just seems like a very weird, unnatural shot, and the dialogue isn't that great either. I guess the only actor that I would say I'm seeing their character from really is probably May, just because she has tried to keep that monotoneness. She's playing with the daggers like she does in the show. Ty Lee sounds kind of like Ty Lee. Ty Lee's very, very thick. She's not the brightest bulb in the box or the sharpest tool in the toolbox. But yeah, she's not smart in any way, shape or form. And her naivete can get her into trouble. So we do see a bit of that, but not enough. And like I said, not enough to see that she's sweet, naive, but very deadly. So far, we've just seen, like, the kind of ditzy blonde character in her. It ends with Azula basically starting her journey into fully destroying Zuko. and yeah, just even, like, the close-up ending on her. Now, Azula, from her voice, her actions, her body language, her facial expressions, I know it was animated, but still, exudes her dark side, exudes that warrior-esque mentality / will do anything and everything to get the job done. This actress, I don't know, the last few lines, it literally felt like she was reading them off like a card prompt or something. I'm not getting enough Azula. I'm really, really not. I'm getting a girl that is kind of annoyed at her brother for getting her father's attention. That's what it's coming off. It's not exuding evil, villainesque, will really fuck up his game mentality in any way, shape or form, which is annoying because I do love the actor who's playing Zuko. I think him and Sokka are probably the best iterations, but when it comes to Azula, I'm kind of putting her in the same boat as Katara, in the sense that they've made their character very one note. The actress who's playing Azula, it seems like she's just like, oh, she's mean kind of thing. And she's basing her whole character on that. Katara's one, it's like, she's kind, she's sweet, that kind of thing. And that seems to be where they're going with it. I don't know if any of these people have watched the show, but that's the first thing I would have done, is literally told them, watch the show, read the books, get a full, especially Azula, because Azula is such a complex, dark, very driven character that makes herself kind of go insane from this whole journey. So to see it I know it's early days. I know this is like the first episode with Azula or whatever, but I'm finding it very hard to fathom that this actor is going to turn into Azula. I could see little bits of it from Katara. I need that girl to get a bit more oomph behind her, but I don't know if we're going to see it from Azula. And I really am intrigued to see their scenes together, her and Zuko's scenes together, because I don't even think this girl can really project like Azula does. Even the way she says Zuzu, oh Zuzu, like in the original show, it wasn't only intimidating her saying that, but it was insulting the way she said it. It was almost being like, oh, you silly little boy kind of thing. That she would call him Zuzu rather than Zuko, being her older brother. And in this, she says it once, she's like, yeah, but she's talking about her father, like giving Zuzu, whatever. But even the way she says it, it's not even like she rolls her eyes at it or anything to be like, ugh. It is just said in the same monotone way that she said the rest of the sentence. But again, it's still early days. Maybe I'm being a little nitpicky about it. I don't know. It's probably because I've watched this episode so many times at this point that I'm sick of it. So it cuts back to the Avatar gang, and they're trying to figure out how they can help and how they can stop the bombings. Teo has figured out that he's seen some nonsense going on at the top of the mountain, and he reckons that's probably the hideout of the bombers. Sai's not too happy about this, that he wants to go off, but he lets him, I guess, because he's with the Avatar. And yeah, he tells Aang that he's going to need him to help him airbend. Well, he's going to need him to airbend him up there, but once they're there, they can sort it out and see who is behind all the bombings, right? Great. So Sai isn't too happy about this because he's got a few inventions he's going to need to finish off. And guess who wants to help? Sokka helps him with that, and that's kind of like the start of his tinkering story. And we actually find out that Sokka is kind of the missing link to Sai and figures out how to fix the blimp and a few other things. Now, it's really weird because in the original episode, when I can't really remember, when Sokka does help him or whatever, the blimp plays a big part because Sai basically sells that design to the Fire Nation, and the Fire Nation utilize the fact that they have got air now as well as water and land, that they can literally fly above people and firebend them from the air. So it was weird that they hinted at the invention, but we didn't really see it come to anything. I don't know whether that will change. By the end of this episode, Sai does admit that he was helping the Fire Nation, but only to protect him and his family and Umashu in general. I don't know how that's working, if they're, I don't know, literally. But yeah, that's the whole reason why he was helping them. In the animation, it was that, but it was also a bit more selfish because they weren't in Umashu. They were literally in the Northern Air Temple, and yeah, it was basically his source of income was him getting paid from the Fire Nation to invent things. So that was a nice change, I guess, because that was weird. Like I said, I don't really like that episode in particular, but yeah, that was an interesting change. Whether it sticks or not, because like I said, they showed the blimp and stuff, but it never fathoms to anything, is another thing. We then figure out what happens with General Zhao, and I don't even know if he's a general in this, but Zhao, Iroh, and Zuko find out that there was an airbender spotted above Umashu. Like I said, I don't know how these dogs spotted him. Those motherfuckers were on an air bison, and I still can't see it. So yeah, apparently the Fire Nation saw an airbender, I don't know how, and have decided to go to Umashu Zhao says that he wants to take a bunch of men and go in quick in and out and get him. To which Zuko doesn't trust or believe and says that him and Iroh will go on their own. It then cuts to Katara, and she is waterbending by a well, and then she accidentally witnesses Sai doing some dodgy shit with someone who is clearly part of the Fire Nation. As she's about to, I guess, confront him because she makes a motion as if she's about to go towards him. Jet, or the mysterious stranger, ends up next to her, pulls her down, and tells her to wait and watch. And that's when we see the firebender actually firebend. And he tells Katara that Sai is a traitor and he needs to be stopped, kind of thing. And that he's been the one selling the bombs to the Fire Nation spies to destroy Marshu. Jet also calls Sai a turncoat. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that like a common phrase? I thought that was literally for the American and the British. And I mean, I guess it means traitor, but I don't know. Again, this episode is where the dialogue is like, what? It genuinely feels like it's not set for the times. Like, they're saying some random shit in it where you're just like, what? How would he know what a turncoat is? It's like a different realm and different, like, who would have been the turncoats? I don't know. It was just a weird part of the dialogue where I stopped and I was like, huh? Like, who wrote this? So he finally stands up, shows her his blades, and he finally stands up to tell her that he is Jet in his weird hero pose with his blades. Now, I'm not trying to be funny. They were probably on that cart for, I don't know, at least like 10, 20 minutes. So they didn't ask each other's names. So he was just willing to let some rando strangers onto his cart, especially with bombings and stuff going on. I mean, for all he knew, they could have been undercover firebenders. He don't know that. But I don't know. I think it's so dumb that he didn't tell Katara his name. I'm pretty sure in the show you find out pretty much straight away, like in the animated show, that his name is Jet. But I don't know, this weird hero sequence, the dialogue of being like, you're an airbender, you're a waterbender. It seems like only Zuko and Iroh's dialogue was written by actual adults, and I don't know, like, the dialogue is the bit that's throwing me in this. It was really weird because I've almost 100% forgotten about Zuko's scar, and I'm now pissed at the dialogue. And not even his dialogue, just everyone else around him. Yeah, this weird, and with even the music to highlight the hero pose, it was just a bit too cheesy for me. It's just very, very, very cheesy. So Aang and Teo fly up to the cave in this cute little flight sequence, which did make me think that Teo, I don't know, again, who artist rendered Teo's glider and wheelchair, but the sizing, I don't know, the wheelchair looked way too big for his glider to be able to carry, but that was just a little artist input from someone who does actual 3D models as well. But yeah, that was a cute little interlude. And then we have Katara and Jet catching up to the Fire Nation guy, who then hoodwinks them with two other Fire Nation guys, to which then Jet has hoodwinked him when they get severely cornered with his Lost Boys / the Good Guys group. The fight sequence in this is okay. I mean, the fight scene when Jet was fighting the guys, it was alright. It's just very short. It was too short. And then Katara waterbending, I don't know, like... It's the sequence of her watching Jet fight 3 dudes on his own, her looking at this tiny little pond next to her or whatever, and then her throwing her little waterbending move, to which then they get cornered. The merry men had to help them. It was just too short. I think the whole sequence is like 1.5 minutes long, or maybe even less than that. And we want to see Katara actually waterbend. It feels like, you know, she's all upper body and no leg movement whatsoever. Oh, I don't know. And even the whole, her hesitating. I don't really ever remember Katara hesitating. Like, even when she didn't really know much waterbending, she'll still throw some water at you to stop you from doing whatever you were going to do. So the fact that she's just watching Jet and just stands there, I don't know. It just feels very damsel in distress, but she has water powers. So yeah, they make the same old pipsqueak joke that they made in the original show. And yeah, she meets the Lost Boys. I don't know, they call themselves the good guys in that another weird hero sequence. Which, you know, anyone that calls themselves the good guys, yet when Katara says, "Where are you dragging that body?" It's a bit weird that they were just dragging bodies. But those motherfuckers are actually dead. Kind of crazy. And they're like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about Katara. You know, we're the good guys. They're just throwing out the trash. She's like, what? Like, good guys would be like, you know, they still probably need medical attention. We don't want them to die. But, honey, if that weren't a hint, then I don't know. But from then, Katara should be like, okay, well, I need to find my brother and stuff. I need bones, you know, I need to tell them. But no, she was like, okay. Then cuts to Sai and Sokka, you know, talking about being inventors. And Sai basically telling him that, you know, there's more to it, that, you know, some people are just born to be that, and that's you. And he's like, no, I'm meant to be a warrior, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you should kind of figure out your own path. Which is true. I mean, I do feel like because of Sai's kind of weird fatherly input, it did help, even though it did also make Sokka realize that he wasn't willing to do anything. Like, he still has morals and that kind of thing. And he's just not willing to sell it for essentially what you think is the greater good, but isn't really. And then yeah, it cuts back again. This last 20 minutes, there's a lot of jumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between characters, because I guess there's so many of them. But then it cuts to Aang and Teo, and then talking about how the Fire Nation destroyed his life, killed his mom and all this, and how his father, you know, moves them to Amashu to help them to invent and to protect them from the Fire Nation, and that he'll do anything to protect them. And that's probably why his son has such a courageous attribute, I guess, because he sees his father inventing and doing all this kind of thing, and he wants to emulate that, but also he really just genuinely hates the Fire Nation and wants to get rid of them. Rightly so, man. Rightly so. It then cuts to Katara and Jet walking with the Lost Boys and going to essentially what is their home in the middle of the forest. And her seeing like a whole bunch of orphans and what they've been through because of the Fire Nation, and how that they're the good guys and they're there to protect those who can't, and they didn't want to be victims anymore and all that good stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it is very, very reminiscent of, I keep saying the Lost Boys, because yeah, in Peter Pan, especially this bit, like where they made like this makeshift little village in the forest for themselves, and you know, they're all kids. So yeah, it's interesting, but I feel like, again, with how choppy this episode is, it feels weird to introduce Jet and then not see him for a good solid 20 minutes or something. It is weird. I mean, honestly, I totally forgot about him. I do feel like they should have just made this the Jet episode and left out all that other shit. With the inventor and Teo, because it wasn't really, I guess it's not really needed in this episode. But yeah, this is what I mean about the mishmash. We then go back to Aang and Teo, and they find, I guess, the base in the cave of where the terrorists, I guess, are staying, or have kept their supplies. And Teo finds some blasting jelly, and he says that the sitar or Qatar or whatever, that there's something in the mountain that basically helps produce this blasting jelly. And if you boil it down, that's what it becomes. And this is what they are using to blow up Amashu. While that's happening, Aang notices, was it some turnip sacks? And yeah, as Aang is looking around, he notices some turnip sacks and says that it isn't the Fire Nation that's causing the explosion, that he knows who is. Yeah, and that's what I mean by the turnip sack comment at the beginning of the episode was important, because, yeah, it highlights that Jet is full of shit. Then Katara and Jet have this little heart-to-heart about their mums. They tell each other their stories about losing their mothers. Katara also tells him that she's being blocked in her waterbending, and all she sees is the last few moments of her mother's life. And he tells her to not do that and to think of her happy and the best sides of her and utilize that emotion in order to waterbend. And it works. It actually helps her in a way it hasn't throughout this whole season. And she gets rid of that block and starts utilizing her mother's memory in a good way. This was probably the best part of the episode, I would say. It did make me feel for Katara. It did also... I think... I don't know. I still don't know if I really like this sad blockage that she's been having, but I hope that since she doesn't see that anymore, we're going to see a more confident Katara, especially when it comes to her waterbending, because that was really getting to me. But this sequence in particular was needed, because if it went another episode with her, you know, getting blocked, or keeps, like, with her seeing that flashback and her, like, stopping mid-step, I don't know, it just wouldn't have worked for me. It's already trying too hard with that. It's interesting because I guess they want to show how hard it is for Katara to learn, but if you're not going to compare that to Aang, then to me it just seems pointless. I'm just saying. I don't know. What did you guys think? Do you think, like, are we missing something? Are we missing something? I don't know. We finally see more Zuko and Iroh, my favorite two. Like, really, like, I love them, like, even from the show. And yeah, they notice the destruction in Amashu, to which Zuko is questioning as to why, and Iroh tells him that he's been told it is Fire Nation. Zuko is very unhappy about this because he sees it as basically being a coward and picking on, like, civilians and, like, hiding rather than being a warrior, and that's not how he was raised, and his father wouldn't be happy with this, and so on and so forth. But Iroh explains to him that in the midst of war, it's very easy to get the lines blurred. And it is true. If a war's been going on for over 100 years, though they might be Fire Nation, there's no assurance as to where their loyalties lie. As if all they know is destruction and war, then, you know, it's very hard to see where the light is in a way. And I liked this. I liked, again, we're seeing more of Iroh, we're seeing more of his character, his understanding nature, that kind of thing. We're also seeing more of Zuko, his character, his discipline, his need to have structure and rules, and his understanding that without them, that is just chaos. It's great. It's great to watch. It then cuts to Azula writing a letter to Zhao, basically saying to keep an eye on Zuko, and she will reward him for basically being in her pocket. And yeah, I guess this is the start of her journey into the outer world to keep tabs on Zuko. Or it seems that way anyway. So Team Avatar meets back up at Sai's place, to which, Aang walks in first and says he knows he's behind the bombings, led up by Katara, who says the same thing. And then ensues the big argument as to who is really behind it. Is it Jet or is it Sai? And Sokka's kind of in the middle, yet he's very much on Sai's side, saying, well, no, Jet, like, flat out lied to us and is a con artist, and Sai has been helping them, and he's not the bad guy. Katara has had enough of them saying this about Jet, and she runs out to find him. As she runs, she bumps into the cabbage guy again and cuts him off completely. Zuko is stalking her, kind of. Interestingly creepy way. And yeah, and then she bumps into Jet, who openly admits that they are setting something up to get rid of Sai. It's weird. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, with how choppy this episode is, we're not really seeing any character arcs. The last time we saw Jet, he was being really sweet, opening up, doing this whole thing with Katara. Now he's acting like it's been days, even though it's probably been like an hour since they've seen each other. And he's very much the fake good guy that likes to take out the trash. Yeah. I don't know whether the episodes need to be longer or there just needs to be more of them, but I don't think it's best with them legit putting about 4 different episodes into one episode, especially when 2 of them, for me anyway, were fillers, which is the Jet storyline and the fake Airbender storyline. Yeah. So as Jet is telling his extraordinary plan to Katara, why he would tell her? No idea, but I mean, this happened in the show. Well, to be fair, he didn't fully, like, she basically walked in on it. He didn't want to tell her what was going on. Yeah, we see the good/bad/Lost Boys swap out Sai's case for a case that's full of blasting jelly. And Jet knows that he has an audience with the king, and he is willing to eradicate everyone, including the king, as he sees him as the diseased heart of the city. Like I said, this is a huge 180. In the episode with Jet, there is like little breadcrumbs that he's no good. In this, the only real breadcrumb, if you hadn't watched the show, was, well, the turnip sack, but more importantly, the taking out the garbage or taking out the trash comment, with them literally Hitman style dragging some bodies away to dispose of them. I mean, I don't know, watching teenagers do that was kind of nuts. I was like, yo, these kids have been playing Hitman for sure. So it begs the question, what did he expect Katara to say? Did he really think that she was just going to be cool with it? Also, at this point, it was very, very, very obvious, like I said, that they liked each other. And we're still not getting any chemistry between these 2 characters, or actors, I guess. It's just a weird dynamic to have these storylines in it, but then not still have the integral part of the characters in it. It's like, let's Frankenstein monster the storyline and the dialogue, but keep their names the same, I guess. Because the characterization of Jet, it could have been good. It could have been really good. Like, they got the outfit right. They got, like, I'm sure the actor's great. Like, even the teeny weeny fight sequence they had with him was great. But, I don't know. And doesn't he chew a straw? Like, thingy? Like a wheat? Like, doesn't he chew something in it? I can't remember. But, yeah, I don't know. It just seems so forced for them to literally be in a scene where they had such a sweet, sensitive moment and where he really, truly helped her. In fact, he helped her become a better waterbender, let alone a better bender in general. To then just like this cold-blooded, full-on maniacal evil, willing to blow up the palace kind of shit. It just seems like so... He is literally Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, for sure. Because literally, his character could have been played by 2 different people and it would have made more sense. Now, him and Katara do have a bit of a back and forth where he, like I said, he tells her his whole plan and says it's for like the greater good kind of shit. And Katara is almost like a kid that was told that they couldn't have a sweet or something. She's just like, you are the bad guy. And then just throws... I guess the shawl or whatever that he gave her, which I honestly did not remember, but he must have given her something. But this is what I mean about they were a cute kind of... She really liked him. In the original show, like, she was like goo-goo eyes over him, and we don't see it at all. And even in the actor's, like, reaction to him literally saying he's gonna blow up the kingdom, the king, Sai, fucking everybody, like, she's just like, you are the bad guy. Sokka was right. It's like, girl, no, scream, get angry, because Katara was very much that. She would, even in this episode with Jet that was in the animation, she was angry. She wasn't like, oh, this is... No, she was pissed. So it's weird that in this, my girls, and there was nothing to do with being blown up in that one. I think they, like, tried to destroy a dam to essentially wipe out a Fire Nation village with water. In this, they're literally blowing up the king, the kingdom, the palace, whatever. And she's just like, not cool, dude. Not cool. I don't know. I just, I just wish we'd see more emotion from Katara. She just seems still so very one note, and it's annoying. It's getting really annoying. She kind of reminds me more of Katara in Korra. Again, Korra is the sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Katara's like, I don't know, fucking 80 years old or 90 years old in that. She's old, you know, and she's basically just a healer at that point, which I also thought was weird that she just basically became a healer, which is what she didn't want to become. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, her characterization in this is like Gram version of Katara. So this sequence again was just weird. Considering their last sequence together was the best part, this was the worst for sure. 100% the worst. Katara runs back to tell the boys, and then they decide how to tackle it, and they are met with a fireball from Zuko. Again, this just seems ridiculous. If they're literally under alert that Fire Nation spies are going around the city blowing shit up, my guy, the last thing you should be doing is using your fire bending. And that's literally the first thing he does to Aang. I'm pretty sure, well, until Iroh basically tells him to, you know, annex that whole situation. And they're like, girl, listen, we can't be doing this here. You know, again, these are just things that you would think he was very aware of, considering their conversation on the ship where he was like, this is enemy territory. Like, we're not allowed to go here. Why, my dude? Why? Why would you fireball him? I mean, I guess it was the way to introduce him, I guess. It just seems very sloppy and doesn't make sense to the actual episode and what you've told us about this city. So the gang splits up. Katara and Sokka go to help the king and get on those freaky deaky slides. And Aang fights Zuko without, well, Aang doesn't not use powers, but Zuko doesn't use his fire powers. Now we do genuinely see that especially Zuko has some martial arts skills for sure. And it was nice to see it without, I guess, the firebending effects. I mean, the fight sequences between Zuko and Aang in this episode are great. The only problem is they keep chopping between them and what's going on with Katara and Sokka. And I hate that. I hate when they chop great fight sequences into a back and forth between another scene that has like no fighting in at all. So it just seems like they didn't have enough choreography and then just kind of cut it so that they could fit the rest of the story in. And yeah, I'm just not feeling this last bit where it's like the best fight sequence and they've just chopped it up into nonsense. So it cuts back and forth, and with Sokka and Katara going on the slides, it literally turns into like some freaky deaky level of Temple Run where they've got to now jump carts and shit on the worst green screen CGI I've ever seen. I think even when they were in the cart, Katara and Sokka looked like they were a bit too big for the cart just before they jumped. Yeah. And then, yeah, it cuts back to the fight sequence, to which Zuko finds out that Aang has his notebook and fire blasts out of anger the poor cabbage cart. And yes, the gag continues with the cabbage dude and his cabbages. I don't know. I think this bit, if they only did like the first bit and this bit, would have been fine. Yeah. But, yeah. Katara and Sokka make it in time to get to the palace to see Sai about to hand over the briefcase full of blasting jelly to the king. And she notices Longshot, which is one of the good old bad boys, about to shoot a fire arrow into the briefcase, to which she does the water whip to extinguish it out. And yeah, then all hell breaks loose and they try and get the king to safety. Which again just proves water. Hello? If it was air, like come on, like that fire would have gone off as it was flying through the thing. But water is the only thing to get rid of fire, 100%. So dumb. But yes, the king was saved, Sai was saved, Katara learned how to do the water whip. Now, something new I learned through this like 100th watch through is in the next scene we see Aang putting out the fires that supposedly Zuko started. But Zuko literally just put a fireball onto the cart that we saw that only the cart was on fire. And for some reason in this next scene, multiple stools are on fire, which I didn't notice my first few times watching, but I just thought it was really interesting that that's the case. What happened? The sequences don't make any sense. Maybe the fire spread, but he literally has a push cart with the cabbages, and it seems like stalls all over the place are on fire. Aang is putting them out. Iroh runs into Zuko and tells him basically that they're looking for a firebender. You need to get your ass out of here. He causes a scene so that they take him instead of Zuko. They also take Aang as well. They imprison both Iroh and Aang. And we see Zuko leave through the gates of Umashu. And that's it. That's pretty much episode 3. As you probably can tell from this review or recap, this was hard. This was a hard one to get through for me anyway. Again, if you're not fans of the show, please let me know what you guys think, because for me this was a very weirdly edited episode. A lot of unnecessary storylines for me anyway. Very choppy, weird dialogue and very choppy, weird camera angles, and the editing, like cutting the fight sequences and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm really hoping the next, 5 episodes will get better, but I have a funny feeling that this is the start of the madness. This is just the start of the drop into the abyss. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you thought of this episode, whether you enjoyed it, whether you thought it was hot shit. Just let me know. Also, let me know if you'd watched the original season and if you like this new iteration of Marshu and the characters like Jet, Sai, and Teo. But anyway, thank you so much, guys, for listening, for watching, for doing all that good stuff. Please give your girl a like. Please subscribe. Comment. Come on, let's make this a thing. Let's get all the juices flowing. Let's get this thing going. I can't wait to see you guys soon, and take care. Bye.